Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diamond High Performance Podcast. And today we are joined by our head of Pathways, Leigh Godfrey. Leigh, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Dino.
Well, always happy to have you. Now, Leigh, I never know where the hell you are or what you've been doing, despite the fact that you're one of the most important business people or pieces to the diamond puzzle. So what have you been up to?
Well, actually, I just got back from Victoria. Last night before, I think it was. Whatever the day I saw you, I got back from Victoria. I was actually over there for a little bit of a holiday, so a bit of a breather. I actually went camping, which was nice because, as you say, I've been jet setting sort of since January. I've been pretty heavily involved in the Gen 32 program, which has a lot to do with the AAS, which is the Institute of Sport, and softball. So that's sort of taken up a lot of my time recently, along with obviously heading up a lot of the Diamond Pathways and education stuff.
And so you mentioned the Gen 32 program. So do you want to explain a little bit more about that? Because I know that's been a big factor and a big part of your sort of development over the past few years.
Yeah.
So do you want to give us a bit of a rundown about what that is and I guess what you've been doing as part of that program?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Australian Institute of Sport and the Australian Sports Commission sort of found a gap in Australian coaches. So they designed a program that's literally designed to build up coaches that were recently retired from the Tokyo 2020 Olympics to actually fill our coaching void sort of leading into the 2032 home games and obviously LA before that. So super fortunate. I think I got selected, had to go through an application process with softball, got selected 3 years ago. It's gone very fast, but 3 years ago, and it's been a program that personally develops coaches through I guess identifying your personality types, how you interact with people, just anything to do with coaching, which is very, very broad, as you know, and sort of just developing our pathway into the 2032 Olympics as coaches. So it's very cool. It's honestly, I've been involved in the Institute of Sport a long period of time, whether that be WACE or the AAS, and this is, I would say, probably the best program I've ever been a part of. So super fortunate for the people that I've met and the coaches that I've met, but also really fortunate to sort of learn a little bit more about myself, transitioning from an athlete to a coach, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll come back to the Olympic thing in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I did think it's probably important to maybe touch on even some of the great opportunities you've had in the Gen 32 program around the mentorship and all of those types of components that go with that program. Because I know it's not just, watch some stuff online. You've been traveling a bunch for it. You've had requirements to run programs, etc. But as on top of that, you've also had some really elite mentors that have been involved with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out with Daniel Giansiracusa, who was my initial mentor, along with obviously having a softball one. But most recently, I actually just got into another AAS program, which is a mentorship program from the Gen 32 program. They're all sort of intertwined. And Stacey Marinkovic is actually now my mentor for the next 2 years. So she's a phenomenal human being and I'm super fortunate to have her. So she is the head coach of the Aussie Diamonds and has gone through a similar process to me leading into being a coach. But yeah, the people that I've met, like I had breakfast with the AAS coaching director 2 weeks ago and I caught up with him when he was in Perth watching his son at the athletics event. So he was originally coach, Bill Dovran, and he's actually coaching his son a little bit more now as well. So he loves it. Met Maddie Clements, who's the director at the AAS, and she's a phenomenal human being. Used to be a sports psych. Just the people that you come across. My WACE sort of lead in the Gen 32 program. So Belinda Stow, she is an ex-Olympic coach for sailing, an ex-Olympic athlete for sailing, has won medals. She coached people to gold medals. Like just the people that you meet and I guess the opportunities and the information and the sounding board that they provide is really, really cool, Dino. So super fortunate. And I guess my work with Diamond, it's really helped me. I'm obviously heavily involved in our education space and coaching and I guess if you, for lack of better words, teaching are very, very similar. And so a lot of the stuff that I've learned from these phenomenal human beings has really transitioned into my ability to teach the kids on a more personal level, but also be able to sort of help them with their life journey, whatever that may be as well. So they really intertwine, and I just can't rave highly enough about how lucky I am to meet the phenomenal people that I have.
100%. And look, you say you're lucky, but I don't know I don't know that luck's necessarily a factor. I mean, the fact of the matter is that you've worked really, really hard. You've had an epic softball career. And for those of people that don't know about Leigh, she's probably one of the best softball players ever to pull on the green and gold, and one of the best players in the world in her heyday. Fortunate enough to be part of that program for a long time. Go to the 2020 Olympics, which was obviously a challenge given the COVID years and all that sort of thing. But also in a sport where there isn't a huge financial component or support in that space. So I think it's really important to note that not only were you a dedicated athlete, but you didn't have a carrot being dangled of huge financial reward. And I always, use you as the example when I say, if you really love your sport and you really want to do it, you would do it irrespective of the financial reward at the end. And I don't know how many Aussie rules footy players or, elite athletes that are getting paid millions of dollars would do it if that money wasn't on the table. And so I think that's a huge credit to the type of person that you are. But did you want to touch on some of the challenges that you faced as an athlete? Because I think this is really relevant from the perspective of our student athletes that are trying to juggle school, their friends, their training, their travel, all that sort of stuff. I think you've kind of set a really good standard for what that looks like.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I get asked it a lot, funny enough. Would you have loved to have been a full-time athlete? And I did get to experience that a little bit towards the back end of my career. When I looked at Tokyo, I'd sort of financially set myself up to a point where I could use the funding that I was receiving, even though it wasn't, a livable wage. I'd sort of stockpiled it a little bit to make sure that I could really focus on Tokyo 2020, which turned into 2021, as you say. But yeah, there was definitely challenges there. I don't know if I'd necessarily change any of it, though. It created me into a really, really good person that helps the community, that really values time and where I dedicate that to. I think one of the challenges is what you're prepared to not do in order to do it. If you ask my family, I didn't get to see them a lot, and I missed a lot of birthdays, nieces and nephews being born. And I was prepared to do that because I was doing something that I loved. But yeah, it doesn't say that it wasn't a challenge. I was away for significant periods of time. I was super fortunate, and this is where you and I obviously met years and years ago, but I had a really supportive work environment and supportive manager in yourself that allowed me to travel and to do the things that I was doing. But I would be up at 4:30 in the morning every day, and I would go to the gym. Initially, that was waste for a long period of time, but then we would go to other gyms when we sort of fell out of the Olympics a little bit. It cost us money to go away, so yeah, I was working while I was away too. But it set up really good habits as well. Like I don't know if I'd necessarily change it. I've got a really good business acronym now because I've been able to do the privatised life as well. But at the same time, I was very, very aware of what I was prepared to give up in order to pursue my dreams. And I've just been super fortunate. I've had some really good people around me. I think looking back in year 11 and 12, though, if I had the opportunity to do something like the Diploma of Sport, which we do now, we didn't have that back then, just showing my age. But, that would have been a great pathway for me because it still would have allowed me to go to college and do the things that I was going to do, but probably would have set me up better to do those rather than trying to kill myself trying to do the TE and get up at 4:30 and fit in the world around me. So yeah, there was lots of challenges, but they've created me into the person I am today. So I wouldn't change it for a thing. I don't think, Dino, to be honest with you.
No, and I would totally agree with that as well. And we talk about it all the time. Like, we hear about these athletes, and it frustrates me when we hear athletes that are getting paid millions of dollars talk about the sacrifices they're making. And it's not, and it's actually not a sacrifice. And I always define sacrifice is where you do something where there's no potential return, right? So if I go jump on a hand grenade to save my fellow soldiers in a military environment, then I am sacrificing myself for them.
Yeah.
This is all about investment, and investing in yourself and investing in your dreams and investing in the opportunities that might come your way with a potential return. Yeah. And I think that, you've paid it forward. You've been investing for, a decade plus, probably more than that now. And the reality is that that's all starting to come back to you now. You've got networks, you've got opportunities and things that would never have happened if you had have gone to a traditional pathway. And I think leading into our chat about pathways, I think it's just really important for people to realize that the first one to start their career doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the most successful. It's all about putting a really good body of work together, experiencing a lot of things, getting great people to support you, and then going from there and then launching into your career. So it doesn't matter whether you start at 23 or you start at 33 or 43 for that matter. And I'm a great version of that as well, or a great example of that. I think it's just a case of making sure that you've invested the time to then reap the benefits. And so maybe you can give us a little bit of your thoughts on that. And then some of the programs that we run that look at either giving our athletes and / students an opportunity to create a pathway, invest in themselves, and then create some payback at the end of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you summarised it quite well. You don't realise until you start and you look back on your career. I mean, I started as a 12-year-old when I made 13 when I made my first Australian team, and I made it ever since that. So that was a long period of time, and I did things daily, and that built up to greater rewards down the track. And I think, one of the big things that we try and instill in our students, whether it be our diploma students, our cert students, our athletes, our general population, is that the stuff that you do daily and consistently is what builds you up into where you want to be.
And I don't want to cut you off on that, but I do want to bring that up because that was a really massive difference that you probably showed early on.
Yeah.
So Leigh, in a different life, she worked in the company that I used to run called Fielder's Choice, and that was a baseball, softball, retail equipment business. And Leigh walked in. We'd actually arranged free bats for players on the Australian team. Easton had sponsored, and so Leigh walked in, and she was the happiest, bubbliest person I'd ever met. And I literally called the CEO of Softball WA afterwards and said, "Whoever that girl is, we need her to work for us. If she needs work, let her know." And then that was maybe when you were 19.
Yeah, I just come back from college.
And so literally since then, Leigh and I have been pretty inseparable since then.
Yeah.
But that was also when I was in my let's say unhealthy phase of my life, and we would do lunch runs that would be just Macca's and whatever, and Leigh would drive down there. She'd get a salad from McDonald's. She would come back. She was super disciplined. She'd work out. Like, none of us were going to the gym at that point. I was post athlete. Like, I don't need to work out. I
think you used to give me crap about going to the gym.
Literally, right?
I think I was against the club on that one.
I've grown. And I think that it was you were in an environment that where there's a lot of people weren't sacrificing or weren't investing in themselves even close to the level that you were. You were setting the standard. You were up early. You're at the gym before you come to work. You come in, you work up, you'd bust your butt all day, then you go to training. And so for me, that was a huge, just massive flag to go, this person is driven and on a path to do some pretty special stuff. And so it was really noticeable. And so I think sometimes athletes are outside of the bell curve. You're outside of the norm. And so therefore, you don't necessarily fit. You don't necessarily feel like you're part of this, you're not part of the crew. Like, I never wanted to really go to parties when I was in high school because I wanted to go to training the next day, or I wanted to go to training that night, and I wanted to play, and I didn't want to be part of that scene at that time. And it wasn't even I didn't even consider it I was missing out. I just rather do that. And I think that to do that over a sustained period of time, that's where it starts to become the investment. Yeah. And for those people that fit outside the bell curve, I think that's really where Diamond tries to come in. So those people that maybe don't feel mainstream, they're like really committed to what they want to achieve, or they just love sport. Yep. You know, one of those two things, that generally tends to be where we start to make contact with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on a really valid point. Like, I obviously was quite strict when we were at Fielders, but that was probably set up from, I guess, the struggles of the teenage years. I was quite a stocky body shape. I still am, but, you know, I didn't know what I know now about what we eat, the way we eat, how we train. That's an evolution process as well. So, like, again, looking back, you know, high school, I was definitely outside of what you would call the bell curve. I was focused on doing the softball and the training and everything that came with that. And I think I really found my place with my teammates in that world more than I found it at high school. So, you know, again, hindsight's 20/20, but if I had a program like Diamond, I think that would have really streamlined my development. Now, yes, you know, I still got to do some really cool things, but I think it potentially makes those high school years a little bit easier. But again, knowing what I know now, that set the foundation for me to go, well, I'm not going to eat what everyone else does. Like, I'm okay with that. Being a little bit different is not a bad thing. It's me being the best version of myself. And again, not just coming back to Diamond, but like being able to help these high school kids, I'm super passionate about, and particularly young females and young female athletes. I guess when I was coming through high school, it wasn't the norm for young females to be heavily involved in sport like it is potentially a little bit more in today's era. But yeah, it just really set the foundation for me to be able to go, well, Dean, I'm not going to go to Macca's and have this or whatever. And it was totally okay. And one of the best things at Fielders was, yeah, we used to have a lot of banter and all those sorts of things, but people like yourself that really supported me in my journey made it so much easier as well to be able to go, well, I'm not going to go to the party, or I'm not going to do this. I'm going to actually stay and train, because I really enjoyed doing that and I loved hanging out with my teammates. So, yeah, if I'm able to sort of circle that back, which I know we'll touch on in a little bit, but I'm massively passionate about making sure that females have a really good pathway to make sure that they can end up in college like I did, or representing Australia, or just being the best version of themselves for their private life where they're working or whatever they want to do. I've just developed this massive passion in being able to help young females be able to do whatever they want in this world, whether that be sport or personal life.
Well, and I think as well, you know, you're a great example of it, that the skill set transitions. So the discipline, the focus, the ability to be able to perform under pressure, to deal with adversity, all those things that you learn in sport, and you learn quickly, and you know probably before you're ready.
Yeah.
In many instances, that is some of the greatest tools that you can ever you can ever have as far as going into the business world, or even family life. You know, things, you have to be resilient, and you have to be able to bounce back, and you have to be a little bit scared and willing to have the belief in yourself that you can get it done. And I think those skill sets alone, I think if there's any employer out there that isn't looking for that, their business might not be that successful. So I think that those things transition really, really well. So, you know, creating a pathway for young athletes that also helps build those skills, puts them in a really supportive environment that challenges them, sets them up for whatever is next, and then give them an opportunity to, to then either hopefully go and be a superstar and never have to work again. But if not, and they've got to come back like the rest of us and go and inject themselves back into what we call the real world, then that's great too, because they're prepared. Yeah. And so, you know, I know the diploma of sport is something you're really passionate about. Mm-hmm. You know, what kind of students do you think, and do you think that suits, and maybe touch on some age brackets and all that sort of stuff? Yeah,
well, sort of what I spoke about before, I obviously went through the TE pathway for all those out there that know what that was. And as essentially a full-time athlete and full-time student, there was some massive struggles in that space. And so I guess the diploma is designed for a multitude of people, but one of the types of people that tend to flourish in that environment are the full-time athletes. So the ones that are training 6+ hours a week, that still potentially want to go to university or they want to go to college in America.
Well, and probably could do ATAR if they weren't so focused on their sport.
100%. And the diploma gives you some real world skills too. So these athletes that are focusing on their training and what they want to do outside of school hours, it allows them to lift at the gym. It allows them to learn about sport. It allows them to learn about themselves and set them up to be in a really good spot to exit high school and be able to have as many options as possible. In saying that, the reality is someone that loves sport is going to love the diploma of sport. They have the ability to learn what goes on behind the scenes, like how to identify talent, how to create systems and processes that are used in state sporting organisations and national sporting organisations, and even what's used at the Australian Institute of Sport, and learn about sports science. Any of those kids that really love sport, like that's in year 11 and 12, and they want to go learn about sport and they want to create as many opportunities, whether that be to go to university, to go straight into working in sport, or whether that be to go overseas and do something. They're the types of kids that really flourish there. And then we also have, a few kids as well that school might not be the pathway for them. They may not want to do that, but they're trying to open up their options and look at other things and have a little bit of an interest in sport as well. And they come to us 1 or 2 days a week. They get some outside world experience. They try and sort of figure out who they are and what they want to do as well. So, yeah, there's obviously that heavy sport element to it, but at the end of the day, it's a really good course for making sure that we develop individuals that are really self-sustainable after year 11 and 12.
Yeah, and it's really funny. Like we've been doing it long enough now that I've literally caught up with 3 students in the last couple of weeks, and they're all doing 3 really different things, but being really successful.
Yep.
And so one of them was BJ Cook, who's a professional baseball player with the Oakland Athletics. So for anyone that's seen Moneyball, it's that team. And he's over there, and he's doing his thing and all that sort of stuff. And we were just talking about, some of the stuff we covered in the diploma and how that's helped him while he's been away. And we catch up most weeks anyway, and he trains with us when he's back and everything. But that's one example on the extreme side. And then Michaela George, so she used the diploma to get alternate entry into sports science at ECU. She's graduated. She's done her prac hours with us. She was at Optus Stadium on the field as a trainer the other day, like running around for Gold Coast, which was cool I think it was the Gold Coast West Coast Eagles, the first game of the year. So she was doing that, and she's starting to forge her career in the S&C coaching space. And then yesterday I caught up with Dusty Brown, and Dusty is same age as BJ. They're good mates. But he was kind of a bit of a lost boy, and he wasn't really sure what he wanted to do. And we've stayed in contact, and he's tried a few different things. Like he tried uni, and it wasn't necessary for him. And he's tried a trade, and that wasn't really for him. And he's graduated the police force, and he's in the
cool.
and he's graduated the academy.
Yeah.
And he just said that like the training disciplines in the academy were so similar to training for sport.
Yeah.
And so he's a footy/baseball kid, and he smashed all of the physical testing stuff. He said he only got beaten by one guy, and the one guy that beat him is a 10-year vet on the SAS who's making a transition from the SAS to police life.
That's a tough person to beat.
Yeah, I was going to say that. You're talking about some of the most elite soldiers in the world. I think you've done all right, mate.
Yeah.
So that's the only guy that beat him in any of the tests. And he just was glowing. He's like found his place. He's found his people. He's really enjoying it. And I just think that's a really great like example of those sort of, multitude of opportunities it creates. And then also Caitlin Wincup is another one who's just away at the Volleyroos camp. She flew out today. I was actually trying to get her to come in and do a podcast, but she did the diploma of sport. She's then parlayed that into being the captain, I think, of the under-20s Australian volleyball team, is now on the open women's team. She's working in sport, so she works at Collier Park Golf Course, using her diploma of sport, and then also used that as entry into psychology. and so she's studying psychology. She's in year 2 of her psychology degree. Yeah. So like when you see that stuff, it's just really cool, and it's not been stressful. And like, you know, that when when you're traveling multiple times a year and you're trying to balance that ATAR load, it's really tough. And I just think it's a great opportunity for those kids. And like I said, you know, if you can do ATAR and you're not doing boatloads of sport, then absolutely. We're not saying, we're not advocating for not doing ATAR. There's definitely a place for that. But for those kids that are really having a tough time trying to juggle everything, it's a great opportunity to be able to, you know, keep those university pathways open. ECU's been great with articulation. So if you go do their sport business degrees, you get credits up to 1 year off your course. So the 3-year sport business course becomes 2, or their international sport business course becomes, instead of 4, becomes 3. And you get a double degree from Portsmouth. It's like crazy stuff like that I never even dreamed that we would be able to do has been really, really cool. So
well, and I think there's again, being fortunate enough to still sort of be really heavily involved in the sports sector, there's this real transition around experience and life skills and the ability to be able to have conversation with people and build relationships. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned sort of transitioning from an athlete to a coach and in this program with the people I'm surrounded by is your ability to communicate, have relationships, and to rely on that network has been massive. And you know, one of the things, you know, I've got a really good friend who's the Vice Chancellor at ECU, as you were just talking about, and one of the things that they've done is they've really noticed coming out of sort of, and in particular our diploma of sport, is the ability for the kids to be able to hold conversation. So when they do go to university and they do study something like a sports science, they've got some really good practical skills. They've got interpersonal skills. They have the ability to communicate with people that they don't know. And as much as we think that might be a skill set that everybody has, it's not the case. And I think that's a really good representation of sort of the programs that we're trying to build through our vet sector, is that, you know, once they leave us, they have the skills to stand on their own 2 feet and be able to do whatever they want to do, which is with those students that you just said, you know, obviously the broad array of students that we have exit our program and that we're fortunate enough still to be a part of the Diamond family.
Absolutely, and we're trying to set them up for what's next, right?
Oh,
we want them to be, you know, the best we can. And I think sometimes we underestimate what younger people are capable of doing. Yeah. If you give them a bit of rope sometimes and give them a challenge, put them in an environment where they're set up for success, what they can achieve is sometimes mind-blowing. Yeah. And I've seen that as a coach in Little League Baseball. And I've also seen it even recently in our awards night, where the Diploma of Sport class on a Tuesday ran our awards night. Yep. It was epic. Yeah. It was so much better than I thought that would be possible, let alone what they were capable of. I just thought that, and they'd thought of everything. They'd done such a great job, and some of the kids just really excelled in that environment. And hopefully that's, you know, gives them confidence that they can really do stuff, because fundamentally, the ability to be able to do something well all stems back to your own belief and confidence. And so having a chance to be able to do it, like you can't be good at your sport. Like you can't get a hit if you're not confident and don't believe in your own ability, right? You can't like Steph Curry can't make a 3 if he doesn't believe it's going to go in. And the same thing, you can't do, you know, excel at anything if you don't have that belief. And I think that's the most important thing.
Oh, huge. And just touching on the awards night, like, if you hadn't have told me that the Diploma of Sports students were running it, I would never have known. And I've been to fortunate enough to go to a lot of awards nights, and it was only because I knew that they were running it that was the case. But that was
it could have been a state sporting association,
100%, and I wouldn't have even known. And you know, I was obviously a guest presenter and did all of that. It was super professional. The MC was phenomenal, who was also a diploma student, but. Yeah, just the whole thing and the whole setup. But if you had asked me prior to that, if that's what it would have looked like, I think we would have put limitations on that ourselves, right? But they were phenomenal. So I think that just shows, like, again, when you give people the freedom to be able to be who they are and their ability to take and put spins on what they want to do and give them ownership, it's huge. And it just, I just can't speak highly enough of the program, because one, I wish I had it as a teenage athlete, but two, I just think it sets these kids up for really, really massive success. And success doesn't have to be winning a gold medal at the Olympics. Success can be whatever they want to do in their life. So yeah, just touching on that event, I thought I'd throw my 2 cents in because it was wicked. It was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I think moving on to that whole idea of setting people up for success, making sure that people have confidence and all of that sort of thing. I think the next thing that we should touch on is our girls program, our Girls Athlete Academy. Yeah. That's probably one of the most fun things we've done. And, you know, we've partnered with the City of Gosnells and Baseball WA to basically offer a free program for 50 girls for 6 months of strength and conditioning training at our fully revamped ballpark facility. And that was all off the back of Soph Nymphius's ASCA talk, which basically and sorry, Soph, I'm going to bastardize, but I'm going to summarize it in layman's Dean terms. And fundamentally, her presentation on, the prevalence of ACL and major injuries for girls in sport basically summarised into the fact that we can't be sure that there's any specific correlation between being female and an increased level of ACL injuries, because the level of strength and conditioning training that they get given at a younger age is it's so much lower than the men that when their loads spike into high performance training, we're not comparing apples with apples. And so the fundamental biggest impact that we can make is by launching young girls, and not the same age as boys, not at sort of 10 or 12, but at 8 to 12 when they develop, into S&C programs, letting them develop from an early age, getting them super strong before we boost them into crazy high-performance sport level loads. Then we can start to make some assessments on that. So the number one thing that we can do to help young girls stop major injury, in particular ACLs, is to get them started in the gym. And that's what this program's all about. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, hopefully you'll be able to see the video footage of this podcast, because I was obviously smiling the whole time you were talking about it. But having young females in the gym at the age of 8 and onwards is just, it's going to be life-changing for them. Like I've retired since Tokyo 2020, and I've lifted every day since, just about, or I've run every day since, or we're giving them the skills that are hopefully going to, A, help them with their sport if that's what they want to do, but B, help them with their life to create really happy, healthy lifestyles. And I think to summarise that program in a nutshell, Dino, I went out to the under-15s Aussie training for the WA contingent, and one of the coaches out there, his daughter is actually a part of the program, and he said to me last night, and it was just random, we weren't even talking about the program, and he said to me last night, Leigh, my daughter literally got upset the other day because we couldn't get her to the gym. Like and she'd never done the gym before. She'd just signed up for this program. She knew a couple of people, but didn't know, a massive amount of the girls. And she literally got upset because they couldn't take her to the gym for whatever reason it was. And he said she is absolutely loving the program. Now, whether she goes on to be a phenomenal Australian athlete in whatever sport she chooses, or whether she just continues to live throughout her life because it's built her up in confidence, it's allowed her to be the best version of herself, whatever that might be, that's what this program's about. And I couldn't be prouder of the way it's been run by Diamond, the investment from the parents or the girls themselves, but the amount of times that I watch, someone taking video footage on our Instagram of these girls, like they're all smiling, they're all having fun. Our trainers are having fun. We've got some phenomenal male trainers, but some phenomenal female trainers that have really taken ownership of this program. And I know it's obviously come about from Soph's ASCA presentation, but I think this is something that you and I had spoken about a lot through our time at Fielders, and then now with Diamond making it a massive reality. So yeah, I guess the next challenge for us and for Diamond is how we create a sustainable program to allow for the pathway of young females to come through the gym, because I just think it's going to make their lives better, whether that be in the sporting arena or or off field. So I couldn't be prouder of the way it's gone, and I'm just super happy that we're changing some lives for the better.
Well, and again, we weren't really sure what we were doing, letting 58 to 12-year-old girls loose in the gym. We're like, well, we'll just see how this plays out. And it's honestly been probably the most positive thing that we've done in the entirety of all the programs we want. And we've run some good stuff, right? And I've like our baseball showcase that we did, and some of the other really cool programs that we've run over time have been awesome. But I think as far as immediate impact, I think this Girls Academy has been awesome from the perspective of just there's so many happy smiley faces. The girls are having a blast, which was a definite remit as far as, when it went out to the coaches to put the program together. The most important thing is that they all had a good time. There's no point running this program and bashing everyone into the ground and having them hate the gym. We've done the complete opposite of what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to give them skills for life. We're trying to get them have a positive relationship with working out, being physical with their own bodies, all that sort of stuff. Again, and we go back to that whole idea of confidence. Just making sure that they feel confident, that they have belief in themselves, that they can walk into our facility, feel comfortable. Then maybe when they move into, high school, or they move into whatever they're in a new environment, they're like, well, I've already done this once, and I'll be fine, and I'll know how to handle myself. And all of those things are all amazing additional factors. Not to mention that they're also going to get 6 months to really give themselves an opportunity to set an amazing base level to help them avoid injury moving forward and maximize performance. And there's some little guns in that squad. Some of those girls are phenomenal athletes. Like, we can't keep up with all their achievements. Like their parents are like, oh, it's such and such, and I'm like, oh my goodness, is anyone not winning everything?
The WhatsApp group goes off quite.
It's crazy.
Quite frequently.
It's so cool to see, and I think that it's probably Johnny's headed off to New Zealand now for his next adventure. But as our longest serving coach, and the guy that has the rugby background and the stern face and the meanest demeanor, even though he's the biggest softest teddy bear, I was like, I'm not sure how Johnny's going to enjoy this program. And I've never seen him smile more. One of the girls cried when they found out he was leaving.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. One of the girls cried when they found he's leaving, and she's the one that's been like dragging him around by his, like, holding his hand and like, come on, come with me. I need to fill up my water bottle and stuff. And
that's cool.
He's been having like, he actually said it to me in confidence, but he's gone now, so it's all right. that he is having a genuinely like having a blast with that program, and I don't know that I would have expected that. So not only is it having a positive impact for the athletes, but I think it's also having a really positive impact on our facility and our coaches. And I think that's the sign of a really great program that's making a difference for everyone.
But I also think, Dino, that's what Diamond's about. Like, if we were to summarize Diamond, it is about making people's lives better, and that just doesn't stop with our clients. Like, that doesn't stop with the 8-year-old girl or our 70-year-old that's been with us for the last 10 years. Like, I think the reality is that the staff that we have and the environment that we provide both our staff, our clients, is one of personal development and making sure that everyone's getting better. And so, looking back at someone like Johnny, 5 years ago that might not have been the case for him, and now it is. And so, I just genuinely think, and I think the staff reflect this quite well, because our staff come to work because they want to be here, they want to change people's lives for the better, and they're genuinely good people. And so I think that probably is the best summary I've heard of Diamond and what we're trying to do. Yep, we love helping athletes get to where they want to get to, but genuinely, we want to help all of our clients get to whatever their goals they want to achieve, whether that's that 8-year-old that just wants to come because, Johnny's there training her, or whether that's our athletics guys that are trying to get better at the nationals and gain Olympic selection and qualification times. Like, the reality is that we're here to help everyone, and high performance for us isn't just athletes, it's high performance for everyday life as well. So, I think that's probably the best summary of A, the program, but also B, what we're really about at Diamond, which makes me proud to work here and be a previous client, obviously of Diamond, but also just work here in general, I think.
Well, and I think on that note, Godfrey, you've summed that up perfectly. So, look, I think we can wrap things up. But look, appreciate your time. It's always great to have a chat about all this sort of stuff. And I think from our perspective, just the ability to be able to give people a little bit of a peek behind the scenes. We have these conversations all the time. It's kind of what drives us. We were all about trying to, improve the situation for people that are going to go through things that we've been through. Like we've been brought down by sport, and we've had our challenges, and like we've had to learn our lessons and take our licks. And if we can help people learn from our challenges and our mistakes and our learnings more quickly, so it doesn't have to be as painful maybe as it was for us, then I think that's definitely part of what we're trying to achieve. So look, I appreciate you giving up some time today, and we'll circle back pretty soon anyway.
Thanks, Dino.
Alrighty, catch you.